Hey guys, welcome to the Emergence podcast, a podcast that aims to empower fitness professionals through candid conversations about building sustainable minds, bodies, and businesses. I'm your host, Laura Gunder, ex-professional ballet dancer turned classical Pilates instructor based in New York City, sharing my insights from a decades-long journey navigating an industry with no set path to success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey guys, welcome back to Emergence, another walk segment. I'm going to keep this one a little short and sweet. I'm honestly exhausted, in all transparency. But last week we had Emma Baker. She was a fabulous guest, super articulate, and honestly so wise behind her ears when it comes to being in her first year as a full-time fitness instructor in New York City. So I highly recommend listening to that episode if you are a newer instructor, because it has some amazing insights, practical tips and takeaways and tricks, and just kind of like a really good energy and kind of spiritual and psychological kind of lens that maybe can resonate with any new instructors, that I think will help kind of ground you in what it's like to be a new instructor and kind of hopefully make you feel less alone, which is my goal of this podcast. So if you have been following along, I am so appreciative of everybody who listens, everybody who's been on this. Honestly, this is like a passion project on the side, but I really do value every single one of you guys. So thanks for listening. What I want to chat about kind of quick on this little recap is really just the importance of kind of using all your past experiences in your life, whether that be your education, being a pro athlete, maybe a musician, an artist, a dancer, just somebody who was really good and academic in school, to your advantage kind of in your teaching career. And I don't know if this resonates, but I think for the longest time, I felt that to be taken seriously in fitness, I had to be kind of, for me, really scientific, mathematical, really serious, and that I wouldn't be taken seriously if I kind of sprinkled in my own personality and kind of brought in kind of my own movement history into how I saw movement, and kind of let my past inform how I teach and how I think about movement. And this episode and conversation with Emma really inspired me, and I have been thinking about this recently, to sort of embrace your story and background as a whole and to use it to your advantage. So wherever you came from, whatever skills you might have accumulated throughout your life, those are practical, very tangible and useful skills that you can take into your teaching career and use them to your advantage. You know, maybe you have amazing people skills, or you're really amazing in school and you're really good at doing research. Use that to your advantage. You know, read up on any interest, read up on things. You know, if you have a client with an issue, do some research on it. Like, make training a fun activity, make it creative. You know, you miss being artistic. For me, you know, I sometimes forgot how much I loved to be artistic and how it kind of fills this kind of space within me, and I kind of neglected it for a while, and I've started becoming kind of leaning into that artistry more, and I'm kind of feeling a little bit more myself and letting myself kind of be myself. And you can hold many different kinds of truths and kind of interests all at once, and just because you're artistic or maybe silly doesn't mean you can't be serious too and well versed in your profession. So that's something that Emma kind of re-inspired me to think about, and I hope she can inspire you to think about that. Anything you've done in your past really shapes who you are, and use it to your advantage, and don't feel like you have to kind of box yourself in to one kind of narrative we may have about fitness. Just because you're in Pilates doesn't mean all you have to be interested in is Pilates. Just because you're a strength training coach doesn't mean you can't like Pilates, or you can't like dance, or you can't be a singer or a writer or whatever. Like, I think part of being a good instructor is having outlets outside of just being in the gym or being in the studio or whatever movement you're doing. And I think that's also what helps keep us inspired and alive and curious, and to bring that energy and light into the studio. Some practical tips she shared that I think are important to bring up are kind of um, needle moving actions. So when I think of needle moving actions, I think of sometimes we focus on the macro instead of the micro. And I guess we can use the example in terms of our clients. Sometimes we see where we want our client to be, and we can get frustrated that they're not moving in that direction fast enough. But if we focus on the smaller movements and smaller progressions and really progressing them in the micro ways, we're actually going to get to that macro sooner, because we are integrating those small um, movement patterns or small um, activations in the muscles that they need to get stronger to move them to the macro. Or on a personal level, if you have a specific goal that you're trying to move through. I know for me, sometimes I can be so overwhelmed by being a perfectionist and wanting the bigger goal to be so perfect, I will just put off the micro and the smaller things that are actually really important to make the macro great. So if I need to be writing every day, I'll kind of just put it off into the last minute and get really stressed. But if I just make time in a looser manner whenever I feel inspired to write, and I've been kind of doing that when I have a notes app. I highly recommend you use your notes app if you don't. But if you have, like, you think about a client, you think about an exercise that would be good for them, put it in the notes app. Or for me, I just think of something, of a connection to something, or something I want to write down, or a thought I have, I'll put it in my notes app. And then I'll kind of just expand on it and free flow and let myself kind of just write. And then I can look back at that. And sometimes, honestly, I use ChatGPT to kind of help organize my thoughts. I highly recommend you do that too, if you're a writer and you process things through writing. And then by doing that every single day, then I've accumulated all these kind of notes. And it might look messy at first, but that micro is actually going to move me, helps me obtain the macro, because I have all that information already. And then all I need to do is organize it and kind of refine it. So I think that was a really smart way of thinking about achieving your goals and taking off kind of the pressure of just focusing on the bigger picture. She also talked about kind of finding spaces throughout your day to mitigate decision fatigue. And we make so many decisions for our clients all day, in our group classes, in our personal lives. Like, there's just a lot of decisions that we always have to make, and it can be a lot. So having kind of grounding spaces, or knowing that you have a cafe you like to go to and a coffee order, and it just takes the pressure off. And you know you can go to this place. Maybe it has great outlets if you have to do some admin work. Um, but just kind of having spaces where you know that you like, you feel safe, you can be productive there. And you don't really have to think. You just go, sit, do what you need to do, take some load off. I thought that was really practical and easy advice to mitigate your decisions and to really help you kind of decompress and deload after chaotic days. If you're running throughout the city seeing different clients, I think it's really important to have those spaces where you can feel grounded. And another thing is, we did talk about kind of being a grounding presence, not only in your own life, but in your clients' lives. And the more grounded you are, I know we talk about this all the time, the more you can show up for your clients. So I think those actionable steps we talked about before, where take off the pressure about the macro, focus on the micro, give yourself credit that you're moving in the right direction, mitigate the chaos and stress by having those kind of checkpoints throughout the day where you know that you have scheduled in an hour for your workout, scheduled in 30 minutes, scheduled in, you know, 10 minutes of breath work, maybe a little walk. It's just having those little check in moments for yourself so you don't kind of lose yourself throughout the day in the chaos. I think That's something I'm starting to implement, is making sure that I have, even if it's just 10 to 15 minutes, those kind of quiet moments to myself where I can take a deep breath, recentered, and then step back into whatever I'm doing. I'm finding that actually really, really helpful. And I'm finding that I can be more mindful within my session. So if I do get triggered by a client who's annoying me, or I just am starting to feel frustrated, or, it takes a little bit more energy to deal with a client, I can take a step back, take a deep breath, and I have that awareness where I can be like, okay, Laura, I can see we're getting frustrated. Let's just take a deep breath. It's not that big of a deal. And what can I do to show up best in this session? What does my client need? Then I can look outside of myself and think about what that client needs and remove whatever discomfort or feeling I'm feeling in that session, because I gave myself that time earlier to really breathe, ground myself, and I can focus on the task at hand. And then after that client leaves, I can go take another deep breath, think about whatever needs to be thought about. So I thought that was extremely helpful. We also talked about adaptability, which we all know is super important. But I think being adaptable in terms of your schedule in New York City, and being able to deal with the ever changing cycle of clients leaving, coming back. And I know some people get nervous about when a bunch of clients leave, and the fact that client consistency can be difficult depending kind of on the area you live in or where you are in your career. But I think something that I've always told myself and kind of always ground myself in is that if you know, if you talk to the teachers in your area, you create a network for yourself, you invest in your education, you're curious, clients always come back. If you're good at what you do, clients will come. And it can be very uncomfortable when you feel like all your clients are gone. But that's why I really do stress, in terms of tangible resources and things to do, just making sure you have a little safety net. So if that does happen, you can ground yourself in that feeling that I know I'm good at what I do and more clients will come, but you won't have that financial stress of, you'll have a little cushion there. So maybe you are 3 or 4 clients shorter that week, but you don't have to stress as much about it because you know they're going to come back. So that's something that I think is really important to look at when thinking about adaptability and malleability, not only in your kind of mind and thought process towards clients, and not having that kind of um, lack mindset, I guess, and really understanding that if you are good at your craft, people will come. And some weeks are going to be stronger than others. And that's why we just prepare for them. We prepare our best. We, yeah, we put up these little guardrails for ourselves. So amidst the chaos and all the things that we can't control, we have our own backs in the best ways we can. For instance, taking those 10 minutes to yourself. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed talking to Emma. It was a great episode, kind of just about self-care and kind of really challenging um, the narratives you have around what a coach should be, how you should be, in terms of what maybe this industry asks of you, and having kind of the courage to ask yourself instead, what kind of coach do I want to be? What kind of life do I want to live? And what are kind of the hard questions I need to ask myself to make sure that I'm moving in that direction? And what maybe do I have to release to get there? And that's something I'm focusing on a lot, and realizing myself, is that sometimes it takes radical honesty, and it's really uncomfortable to be like, I keep banging my head against the wall and having the same issues. I think I need to really reevaluate my values and what's more important to me. And I can give you an example. Like for me, I'm learning that what's more important, working 40 hours a week and feeling exhausted at the end of the week, or maybe lessening my schedule and having more time for my creative pursuits, feeling good and having energy and vitality, and not feeling burnt out and sick all the time. So, if you are feeling that way, I would highly recommend you kind of reevaluate your goals and what truly matters to you, and what kind of coach you want to be, and what kind of coach you would want to go see. Who would you want to work with? And kind of take a step back, zoom out, and look at your life, because you're the only person kind of in the driver's seat of that. And unfortunately, sometimes we have to face some stuff that maybe we don't want to see, but in the long term, like I said, will move us more towards that macro and just making little habits throughout the day. So maybe I cut off teaching at 6 p.m. and that's it. That's a hard stop. And Emma talked about that, and I thought that was great. Is setting those clear boundaries for yourself, because if you keep breaking those boundaries, you're doing the same thing. I've done this for many years. But if you put up that clear boundary for yourself, it's going to feel uncomfortable for a while. But in the long term, in the macro, you're going to feel so much better. So that's just a bit of my brain dump for this week. I hope you guys are hanging in there. It's flu season. Take care of yourselves. Get a lot of rest. And thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. Bye.